Here's a word you've said your whole life without ever wondering where it came from. Jaywalking. You know what it means. Crossing the street where you're not supposed to. For the first several years that word existed, it meant something else entirely, and it wasn't aimed at you. It was aimed at drivers. This is the story of how an insult became a crime, and it ends with a law that almost nobody has actually read. Now, you might already know part of this. There's a version of this story that's been going around for about 10 years. It goes, the auto industry invented jaywalking. They ran a propaganda campaign in the 1920s. They made it your fault when a car hit you, and here we are. And that's true. Mostly. It comes from the work of a historian named Peter Norton at the University of Virginia. He wrote a book called Fighting Traffic. Everybody who's told you this story is quoting him, whether they said so or not. But the story usually starts in the 1920s, in Detroit. And it didn't start there. It started 16 years earlier, in Kansas. Let's start with the word. Merriam-Webster's earliest record of it is a Kansas newspaper called the Junction City Union, June 28, 1905. And the word isn't jaywalker. It's jay driver. A jay driver was somebody who drove on the wrong side of the road. That's it. That's what it meant. Originally, it wasn't even about cars. It was about horse-drawn carriages. Norton traces it back to 1904. He describes it as an insult for farmers with wagons blocking the streetcars. So, the word gets invented, and it's an insult. And it's aimed squarely at the person operating the vehicle. Now here's where it turns, 5 months later. The Kansas City Star. Somebody writes in, essentially complaining about pedestrians, and coins the mirror image of the insult, jaywalker. And listen to what it meant, because it's not what you think. It had nothing to do with crossing the street. Merriam-Webster puts it plainly. For the first few years the word was in use, it was used solely to scold people who lacked sidewalk etiquette. Sidewalk etiquette. It meant somebody standing in front of a shop window, gawking, blocking the flow, getting in your way on the pavement. That's it. That was the crime. And the J part matters because it's doing all the work. J meant a rube, a hick, somebody from the country who'd come into the city and didn't know how anything worked. Norton describes it as Midwestern slang for an empty-headed chatterbox, like the bird. So calling somebody a jaywalker wasn't a description. It was, you're not from here, and everyone can tell. It was designed to make you feel stupid, not unsafe, stupid. 6 years later, Kansas City made it a crime, 1911, the first anti-jaywalking ordinance of its kind in the country. $5 to $50 if they caught you crossing anywhere but a marked crosswalk. And that same year, the Kansas City Star ran a cartoon making fun of jaywalkers. April 30th, 1911. Norton points out something great about that cartoon. It predates the Oxford English Dictionary's first record of the word by 6 years. The joke was in the newspaper before the dictionary knew the word existed. Norton notes some cities had pedestrian rules before this, Boston, Minneapolis, but nobody enforced them, and none of them used the word. Kansas City was first, not Detroit. Now, I want to stop here, because this is the part I find genuinely remarkable. People at the time knew exactly what this word was. 1913, Lincoln, Nebraska. A citizen writes an open letter to the city commissioners about their proposed ordinance. He says, and I'm quoting, "Forget all about that jaywalking ordinance, the very name of which insults every citizen." 1915, New York. The police commissioner tries to start applying the word to anyone crossing mid-block, and the New York Times objects. The paper of record called it, quote, highly opprobrious and a truly shocking name. The New York Times said this word was too insulting to print at people. And then, everybody forgot. So how does an insult that the Times found shocking become a law nobody questions? Cincinnati, 1923. Here's the situation. Cars are killing people at a rate that's difficult to describe. In the 1920s, cars killed more than 200,000 Americans. In cities of any size, by 1925, the automobile is a leading cause of death, and the public is not confused about whose fault this is. They blame the cars. So Cincinnati put something on the ballot. Every car in the city must have a governor, a mechanical device that physically shuts the engine down above 25 miles an hour. Not a speed limit, a governor. You physically cannot speed. 42,000 people signed the petition, more than 10% of the entire city. The auto industry sees this and understands exactly what it means. If Cincinnati caps cars at 25, the car loses to the streetcar, permanently, everywhere. So they organize. Local dealers mail a letter to every single car owner in the city. Money comes in from about 2,200 donors and companies. The Chamber of Commerce lines up against it, the Academy of Medicine, the Businessmen's Club, even the Central Labor Council. And on election day, it loses. But that's not the part. Here's the part. By the time the campaign was over, fewer people voted for the law than had signed the petition to put it on the ballot. They didn't just beat it, they turned around the people who'd already signed their names to it. And Norton's argument is that this, more than anything else, is the moment. This is where the industry learns it can win a fight like this. And what comes next is jaywalking. Watch how fast it moves. Norton, on the newspapers. In 1923, they're all blaming the drivers. By late 1924, they're all blaming jaywalking. 18 months. And it wasn't subtle. The head of the Automobile Club of Southern California said it out loud. The ridicule of their fellow citizens is far more effective than any other means which might be adopted. Ridicule, that was the strategy, on the record. At a New York safety parade in 1924, they had a clown dressed as a jaywalker, and they had a Model T slowly ram him, over and over, for laughs. And here's Norton on the Los Angeles traffic ordinance. This is a direct quote. It was not written by a bunch of policy experts or lawyers. It was written by a man working directly for a Studebaker dealer. The reason given? He wanted a traffic ordinance that prioritized drivers, so that when a pedestrian got hit, the driver wasn't automatically blamed. Which brings up the thing that actually got deleted here. Before these statutes, collisions were handled under common law, and under common law, the heavier vehicle was presumed at fault. That was the rule. If you were driving the thing that could kill somebody, it was your job not to kill them. The traffic statutes weren't written to add a rule, they were written to replace that one. Okay, now the document. Because 2 years ago, you probably saw a headline, California legalized jaywalking. It went everywhere, the Freedom to Walk Act. So I went and read it. This is California Vehicle Code, Section 21955, Subdivision A. This is the text as of July 2026. Between adjacent intersections controlled by traffic control signal devices or by police officers, pedestrians shall not cross the roadway at any place except in a crosswalk. That's the law, right now, today. The Freedom to Walk Act didn't touch it, not one word. What they added was Subdivision B, and it says this: a peace officer shall not stop a pedestrian for a violation of Subdivision A, unless a reasonably careful person would realize there is an immediate danger of a collision. Read those together. Jaywalking is still illegal in California. The prohibition is sitting right there, word for word, unchanged. They didn't change the rule. They changed who's allowed to enforce it. And they did it to 13 different sections of the vehicle code at once. Same sentence pasted 13 times. The bill's author gave the reason plainly: enforcement data. Who was actually getting stopped for this and how often? So who's right? Let's do the rest of the world first, because the law is all over the place. In England, Wales, and Scotland, this crime does not exist. There is no such offense. You cross where you like. Cross into Northern Ireland, same country, and it is an offense. France, Italy, the Netherlands, not punishable. Germany will fine you about €5. And in Shenzhen, they put facial recognition cameras at the intersections and started putting jaywalkers' faces up on a giant screen. Now they just text you the fine. Okay, that's the law. Now here's what I've actually seen. I've been to New York. In New York, everybody jaywalks. It's the norm. The only people waiting at the corner are the tourists. I was one of them. You can spot us instantly. And the cars just yield. It's expected. The streets are busy and compact and close together, same as London, and the whole thing just works. Same law as everywhere else in America. Nobody's obeying it. Nobody's enforcing it. Fine. I've been to Singapore, Japan. There, people wait. Pedestrians follow the rules, same as the cars do. That works too. And I've been to places where it runs the other way, where the pedestrian yields to the car because the car is not stopping. It might honk, it might brake in the last few inches. And places where the motorcycle is king and you cross by timing. You just walk, you don't stop. The traffic goes around you. 4 different answers to who owns the street, and in almost none of them is the law the thing deciding it. New York has the same jaywalking law as the California suburb where they had to pass a whole bill to stop enforcing it. Same words, completely different street. Which is what Norton was saying, I think, and I didn't catch it until I'd stood on a corner in Manhattan. The industry didn't win by changing the law. They won by changing what people believed about who the street was for. The law came after. The law is downstream of the culture. It always was. And I don't want to be romantic about it either. In the places where nobody follows the rules, people still die. A lot of them. Every year. The timing cross works right up until it doesn't. So no, I don't know who's right. What I know is that a word invented in Kansas in 1905 to insult men driving carriages on the wrong side of the road ended up as a crime you can commit. And 118 years later, California didn't repeal it. They just stopped looking. That's usually how it goes.